On June 10th, 2009, in a thread on the Something Awful forum, Slenderman was created for a Photoshop competition by Victor Surge. 10 days later, on June 20th, introduction was posted by the channel Marble Hornets. This is one of, if not the first media to ever use the Slenderman, and is still praised till this day for starting the Slenderverse and technically being one of the first pieces of analog horror, as well as feeding into the idea of proxies, which fueled the creepypasta fandom. Which, let me make it clear, these are not proxies, but you'll see what I mean later. You've seen the title of this video, at least the thumbnail, and there's one character I want to focus on in particular. Before watching Marble Hornets and really knew of the main contents of it, I was influenced by creepypasta into thinking my favorite character would be Masky/Tim or Hoodie/Brian. But no, spooky here, and instead the character who won my heart over was Jay, the man behind the camera and channel of Marble Hornets, in its canon, or out of canon, since Troy Wagner, Jay's actor, is the one who came up with Marble Hornets and started the project, as well as edited the videos. I think it's obvious this will have spoilers, but the series is over a decade old, so I understand if you don't want to sit through 9 hours of it. All I can say is that it does hold up, and it is an amazing story. So much so that I'm making a video, despite it being like 15 years old, and I'm rewatching it for said video for the 6th time now. For anyone who has watched it and needs a refresher, fear not. I will explain it in a well-mannered time. Few more things. My commissions are open. I'm saving up for a new laptop, so that would be very appreciated, which leads me to my next thing. I enabled the super thanks feature, and basically with those, I'll shout you out, take a request, answer a question, you get it. Lastly, if you could like the video and subscribe, that would be pretty cool. I'll draw you 8 pages and put them around a forest for you. So, the introduction is an introduction. Jay tells us in 2006, Alex, a college friend of his, was shooting a student film called Marble Hornets. Over 3 months, his film crew complained about his stress and irritability, resulting in Alex never finishing the film, and Jay asking to hold on to some tapes from the film since Alex planned to burn them. Eventually, Jay forgot about the tapes until now, 3 years later with zero contact from Alex. He says if he finds anything, he'll upload them as a permanent record, which, oh boy, he did. A lot of tapes Jay goes through, and in general within the series, are very out of order and random, so I'll just be explaining everything in order for convenience. First entry, we actually see the Slenderman, or what's known as the Operator, in this since this was before any official name. Up until entry number 7, we see a lot of footage of Alex walking around paranoid. We meet Brian and see the Operator again. Entry number 9, we're introduced to the actors for the film, Tim, Sarah, and Seth. After this, we get our first To The Arc video. Now, back in the day on YouTube, you could reply to videos, and this is basically where and why they came up. I won't cover To The Arc videos because they really just have codes in it, and that's all. They worked more as foreshadowing and a way for communication with the characters, but to summarize, they're a third party trying to guide Jay-ish. You know what? Spoilers, it's Hoodie/Masky. I feel like it's obvious. Anyways, more of Alex and the Operator trying to be best friends with him, but Alex doesn't know that yet. We even finally get to see the star of the video. We briefly see Tim as Jay sets up a fake interview where he plays a bad detective, which he commits to the bit even more so by breaking into a house he heard was Brian's. Searching the place, he manages to get a few things and has his first coughing fit. After leaving, he eventually decides to go back, feeling like he's missing something, and gets tackled by Masky. After a To The Arc video, Jay confesses to recording himself like Alex, and we get another visit from Masky. We see a bit more of Tim as well, which I'm sure could be a coincidence. Taking a clue, literally, Jay goes to the Red Tower to find a tape. We see Seth, the guy who...
You brought your dog!
and Alex explore a location. But what do you know? The camera glitches and Alex suddenly says that everyone is gone. Jay goes back for the third time, and this time the operator just fucks with him until his camera dies. Jay has more memory problems and decides to leave his home due to the To the Ark video and the stalking, resulting in his apartment being burned down. Jay says he plans to stop, since moving around he's felt less paranoid. But then he receives a text of the date, finding a package which contains another tape, one featuring Alex and his best friend the operator, and thus season 1 ends. Season 2 starts 7 months later, with Jay waking up in a hotel and having no memory of the last 7 months. We also meet Jessica, the only other person at the hotel, who we later came to know as another victim in the Slenderman/operator paradox. Now, season 2 does get confusing, but basically it's just Jay looking back on tapes he found a bit later at the start in entry 33. After Jessica goes missing, and in those 7 months, Alex and Jay worked together briefly. Jay wanting answers, Alex wanting to find Amy, his girlfriend. Before, that is, Jay got suspicious. In the time they both work together, both Maskey and Hoodie make appearances, and it's clear they're definitely chasing after Alex, if the To the Ark videos weren't apparent enough. Also, Alex is slowly warming up to being best friends with the operator. We also get familiar with Rosswood Park, kind of a main setting area. By the way, Jay and Alex started working together because Maskey, or as we come to know Tim, attacked them, in which Alex breaks Tim's leg. He doesn't stop there though, because we also watch Alex kill someone. But we're not done, because for the final, Alex leads Jay and Jessica out in the woods to kill them as well. With Maskey's help, they escape, coming up with a number for the safe where he puts the tapes found in entry 33. After an operator encounter, it puts us back where season 2 started, with Jay forgetting it all. Before they end it though, Jay finds a new victim for his stalking. Season 3 is probably the best season and most put together. And honestly, Tim's actor, Tim, sells it. But it is the longest, and I mean longest, season. The stalking begins with Jay showing up at his doctor's office for a whole week to basically get his phone number. Jay goes through more tapes Tim gives him, and we have more operator shenanigans. And a lot of it are scenes involving Alex with him trying to kill everyone back in the good Marble Hornets days. Also Tim suffering. Speaking of that, Jay and Tim will later become partners in crime after Jay forces Tim's hand by leaking his medical history, revealing he's had this sickness, in quotations, since a kid. Also because Hoodie just kind of pushed them together by getting Jay to go after Maskey, and Tim is annoyed enough to entertain Jay. And to be fair, in a situation like this, I wouldn't want to be alone either. Don't worry guys, Jay does end up getting punched twice. Yippee! Yeah, maybe perfect wasn't the word to put in the title for him. After more of Tim's suffering and better character qualities, plus a backstory compared to Jay, these gay detectives make enough progress that they start hopping motels/hotels together. Then there's entry 68, where Hoodie takes the show and basically a diva. Who is this diva? Yeah, that's dead by now, too. Jay hallucinates, they end up getting more tapes. Jay finds out Alex attacked him, and he forgot. Tim ends up standing up to the operator to protect Jay, which is successful, but Jay is dissociated for a good while, which brings up the whole pills factor of Marble Hornets, but I'll discuss that later. Like a lot of things, because the timer is going fast, Jay gets suspicious of Tim, causing him to do whatever this is in order to get a tape which shows what happened to Jessica. Still missing in the end, just Hoodie, Maskey, and Alex were involved. And Alex's best friend thought he was invited too. Jay arrives at Tim's door with a knife and zip ties, only to be tied up himself. Don't comment about that. Hoodie gives him a present, and Jay's on his merry way to join Tim on his solo adventure to find Alex. He waits for Tim, and when he sees Tim run out of a building, he goes in. In there, he finds Alex. Obviously, he's not too happy with this, and Jay fucking dies. He managed to make it to 80 goddamn entries with his tomfoolery. I don't know how. Okay, so it doesn't end there. I was being a little dramatic. Tim picks up Jay's spot after finding the camera/footage. He screams for Jay just to see Hoodie. Chasing him, he tells him he's going to kill him, which does lead Hoodie to his death after a mouth-drilling running teleportation sequence, taking back a mystery tape and his normal pills. But literal normal pills, because if you take them, it's hinted at making you more lucid and immune to the operator sickness. It's a key point in the series, but anyway, Tim gets away, only being able to use Jay's camera from the start. Tim goes back home, showing what was on the tape. This mysterious tape contains Brian's interview for Marble Hornets, revealing Hoodie to be Brian. Tim grieves because he was actually pretty close to Brian being one of his first few close friends. Marble Hornets, Alex's long-forgotten film, with everyone being friendly instead of dead, because, well, Tim says he knows Alex is watching this. Alex eventually arrives at his home, burning his house down, and ultimately, after such a stressful fucking cinematic chase, Tim kills Alex with Jay's knife. Finally, it ends with Tim throwing away the mask, catching up with Jessica, who's going to the same doctor as Tim, and most likely on the same medication, yet she asks what happened to Jay, and Tim lies, telling her he moved. Tim has a coughing fit, and then it just cuts. Tim leaves. The last words being, "Everything is fine." I don't care how you feel about the series, I love it so much and with all my heart. It's so cool. I left out so much, but to be fair, it's 9 hours long. I tried. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. If you already have watched it, watch it again. There are comics afterwards, but unless it relates to Jay, I won't go into them. I seriously recommend you support them, though. They have a lot of answers, but create more questions. I don't know. I won't spoil them too much, but anyways, Tim. Even though my favorite character is Jay, I love how he died and Tim took his place. That's a key point I love about Jay, is how he actually just dies. But let's talk about Tim, as well as his relationship or friendship with Jay. Interpret it as you will. I can't guarantee I will be completely unbiased. Tim, though, I don't think my description describes how much he takes the show. Rewatching season 3, there's this underlying build-up to Tim becoming our, second protagonist, and it's satisfying. It's incredibly satisfying. As we watch, we see that Tim is the more sensible one. We actually get to see how they're complete opposites with how they're dealing with the situation at hand. Jay wants to keep going. He needs to know more, while Tim was content to leave it behind. As it switches to Tim uploading the videos, you feel the difference. How they speak to the audience or phrase things. Tim felt responsible for Jay's death, and I think the most obvious sign of this is the fact he finishes the series for him, continues to post to his Twitter, and records himself killing Alex. And despite what he said before, including Jessica in the final entry. Not to mention, standing up to the operator, sharing space with him, sharing a doctor's office with him, giving him pills, took care of him when he wasn't lucid. Tim admittedly has been the best thing for Jay in this series. You can see Tim try, even when Jay has done nothing but drag him into this. Something I left out is that after Jay's death, Tim finds Jay's laptop. Looking through, he finds footage from the day before Jay attacked him. It shows Jay distraught, eventually trying to locate the shack he woke up in with Tim. Jay calls Tim, explaining he was trying to retrace Alex's steps, but the area is shifting around him. A call or a voicemail that never went through. In the voicemail, Jay apologizes, saying he understands, wanting to come over the day of the attack to plan what to do next. They won't go anywhere working alone. Jay continues to cough, then he has a seizure. Oh hey, the operator's there. Point is, Jay and Tim have a bond. Whatever you may think of that bond, it impacted the result of Marble Hornets. And Tim as a character could be a whole other video, because unlike Brian, who is just a shell using Hoodie as a means of communication, and Alex being our antagonist, Tim just has no control over Maskey, who looks to be an effect of the operator, one that doesn't go away based on the ending. The "everything is fine" text being the same one Hoodie uses as a way to comfort himself in the series. It would make sense for Maskey to do the same. Don't believe me? Argue with issue 3.5. I bet you don't have it. Yup. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna shut up now. I believe Tim was the best choice for someone making it out alive. Out of everyone, he was the only one want to go back to a normal life, focusing on that to drive him forward. Jessica, I was unsure of how to feel until I learned about the comics, which did a lot for my opinion of her. Sorry, OG Jessica enjoyers. Okay, Tim will come up later, in their whole thing. Let's move on to the fan favorite, according to 52% of my responses from the forum I ran on my other socials. Sorry, YouTube. I just didn't feel like it. Which I'll be going over in... Okay, let's find some common ground. Maybe you hate Jay, or maybe he's just not your favorite. We can all at least agree that Jay was the main character for the majority of this series, causing the ball to roll and documenting it for our viewership no matter how dumb it is. His death honestly being deserved, as he became too desperate for answers. But I believe that Jay is a more complex character outside of his actions we see on camera. Said camera that he has control of, which means he has control of how he's portrayed the most. People also tend to forget another place we see Jay, which is on the Marble Hornets Twitter, where he gave updates on whatever situation he was in. He talks about his paranoia and his discomfort being alone, how he doesn't trust people, him forgetting things as simple as his password, his constant struggle with sleeping, and yeah, he really does highlight his experience of stalking Tim and asking around. He even called Tim outside of what he mentioned on the channel, but it's not like we just watched Jay worsen over time on the channel, but the Twitter as well. It gives a more clear and surface level change versus the hours of content we see on the YouTube. For example, I don't know what he responded to here, but it's clear what Jay's intentions are with Tim, at least at the start. Along with this, we get descriptions of Jay's nightmares, Jay trusting Tim with his passwords in case something happens, Tim helping Jay out with To the Ark's codes, his doubt when he took the tape Tim was hiding from him, etc. Jay is an unreliable narrator, and we only receive what's going on through his lens. That's what makes him interesting, since he has the most control over how he appears, is portrayed, like I said. Alex also does at the start in season 2, but he doesn't intend for it to be released to an audience. It's why Jay was a perfect candidate to watch a person decay from this disease, the operator sickness. As someone put, the whole of Marble Hornets feels like it's just happening to him, like he needs to be pulled or ushered around by everything else happening. His first driving force is to find out what happened with Alex, and once he finds him, he relies on Alex to give him direction until he realizes Alex isn't helping him at all. His next course of action is to seek out Tim, who he thinks might have more answers, and while he kind of does, he also wants nothing to do with Jay, until it's apparent neither of them are getting out of this separately. Jay is constantly being pushed from scene to scene by the narrative itself, and very rarely of his own volition. His apartment burns, so he's forced onto the road. He's forced from motels. When the tapes run out, he just goes back to places that events have happened in hopes of finding clues. He is always either running from something or chasing after the next lead. He is leashed to the narrative. I think Jay is aware to a point this narrative he's putting up, just not the impact it has on the people around him. And because he doesn't realize this impact, it doesn't get resolved. It did a little bit with Tim, but Jay still believes he's an outsider in this situation, just archiving his memories of it all in case something happens, which he brings up multiple times, aware of the consequences. I do fully believe Jay doesn't care about the dangers of a situation if he thinks it'll get him answers. This is taken to an extreme by the end, and it's a repeated pattern throughout the series. It doesn't mean he doesn't feel other things or make the horrors he experiences less valid. It's like the saying goes, curiosity killed the cat. Jay puts his curiosity as a first priority with no end goal in mind. Now I want to talk about what I mean when I say we watched Jay decay or deteriorate over the series. Not only because Jay is the target of it, but it ropes in with my own interpretation of Marble Hornets, which is in a mental illness sense. I respect the religious symbolism though. After my many watches and the comics, I believe the operator is some type of sickness/illness, a parasite or disease that can spread through close contact, which would explain why there's so many abandoned buildings. No one's there. And because of this, the pills can help, but they don't stop it from spreading, not completely, just keeping it at bay or manageable. And as sickness is untreated, it takes a toll on you. And with this one, it looks to bring out the worst traits in you, causing fear and paranoia to turn into violence. Example being Alex and Jay. But it really is more unique to the person with the traits these bring out. Don't get me wrong, it withers them away all the same. They are still classified as broken. But while Alex feels like he has to finish everyone off, Jay feels like he has to fix it by going and finding answers, which is evident since he feels guilty for Jessica. But his refusal to get better damages him and spreads to the people around him who have to deal with his detective shtick. Hoodie/Brian indulges in it, so I guess he has that going for him. Speaking of damaging the people around him, let's talk about Jay's relations to others. How would you describe Jay's relationship with others? I've honestly never given his relationships with the other characters too much thought. Mainly Tim, if anyone, though. An interesting thing in general, though, is that I do believe that Jay needs others. He needs someone with him to continue on, I guess. Throughout most of the series, he's with Tim. When he wasn't with Tim, he was with Jessica. And in the beginning, he was in contact with Alex. Almost every single time, he's completely on his own. He makes dumb, sudden decisions that usually get him into trouble. Not that this doesn't happen when he's with people too, but they're sort of a deterrent in some way or another. Alex was trying to keep him out of the whole situation in a way, his own stupid way that clearly didn't work cause Jay's too curious and can't help himself, I guess. Jessica stopped him from doing anything too crazy cause he didn't want her to get into the whole mess, and he didn't realize it was too late for that. And Tim in a way grounded Jay, almost always being more sensible of the two, as he could be considering their situation. Or, as someone else put in this section, he has unhealthy attachment issues. I think a good way to grasp Jay, since he has control over how he is seen, is by the way he interacts with people. Which is why almost everyone on the forum and out has an autism headcanon for him. In general, Jay is socially awkward, and attempting to tiptoe around conversation to investigate makes him only weirder, which sometimes is endearing. Alex, I do believe, is the one he was the closest with, at least before everything happened. Maybe the rest of the Marble Hornets crew, but probably just being friends or acquaintances. Because of this, he lets his suspicion for Alex slide until it's in his face that he's untrustworthy. Jay is like a deer in headlights when it comes to danger. He was when Maskey first showed up, he was when Alex first tried to shoot him, and right before his death when Alex did shoot him. All separate times calling out for Alex. Despite what people say, I think Brian and Jay have one of the most interesting dynamics, since each of them started their channels for the same reason. I don't think Jay has ever expressed how he feels about To the Ark, but I think he thinks of him like this mysterious force. Unreliable, but Jay is impressionable when they're literally in the same circumstances. This shifts in season 3 when Brian gets more comfortable posting and leading them places. But for the most part, Jay seems put off by Hoodie due to the stalking, without acknowledging himself for being a hypocrite, stalking someone, then posting it to YouTube, like Brian did. Both him and Jay also used Tim for their own benefit. Hoodie for Maskey and Jay to visit the abandoned hospital for clues. To some extent, I think Jay has to be conscious of this, but he doesn't like to admit it. He usually brushes off his actions, glazing over it, that or he forgets because of his constant memory loss. At the start, Jay seemed a lot more self-aware. It's in the moments where he records himself or confesses that we see this. But the last shot we get of Jay doing this was by the window, saying nothing. A parallel to the footage Tim found, but his expression is different, conflicted, distraught. Jessica and Jay are the most two terrified people not knowing what's going on duo out of everyone. I think Jay was worried in trying to protect Jessica, but ultimately her name turned out to be an excuse in Jay's mouth as of season 3. Tim calls Jay out with his logic for wanting to find Jessica in entry 59, and after Jay finds the tape Tim hid, which I do appreciate. Finally, Tim and Jay. I've already talked a bit about them and why I think they had a bond. Even then, I left out a lot of why I think they did. Also, further in their partnership, you can see them start acting more friendly. When Jay admits not remembering before everything that happened, content with at least doing something now, it's kind of him opening up to Tim, the same way Tim does when he tells Jay about being a patient in the burned down hospital. In one of the responses I got, someone said they disliked Jay. He didn't trust him at all, even though Tim was trying to help. And I think it's more nuanced than that, which no hate to the responder, by the way. Perfectly fine, I hate him too. Jay's trust was flimsy because of Alex, stretched thin to the arc, and warped by the operator. When he started warming up to Tim, his trust was broken with him hiding the tape, probably permanently. Not probably, permanently. Because Jay was so hooked on answers, he impulsively went to Rosswood to find them, just to regret it. Jay was a victim to the operator, and Tim saw this. It's why he still called out for Jay several times, despite the attack Jay had on Tim, and ruining his life, in his words. It's why he continued in general, despite Jay's actions towards him. To be fair, Tim even tried to reach out to Alex in the end. Tim is just a tragic and good character. God, why is this shitty wet cat my favorite? You knew his ass was too far gone. That's all I'm going to say though, because the rest of it is pretty much just ship nonsense. If you want that, just go to my Tumblr. Ship nonsense was practically bred there. Why do I like Jay though? Pretty simple, as in I relate to him. He treats himself as an observer. He's impulsive. While he can be smart, he doesn't think before doing. He also has the urge to know about the subject he's fixated on, said subject being Alex and I guess the operator, his curiosity often sending him down a rabbit hole, thinking answers will just fix it on its own. I find his flaws relatable. And yeah, alright, also because I have the autism projectile beam turned to 100 on this man. Don't lie, you do too. All this being said, I still find Jay frustrating like everyone else. I understand that a lot of his decisions and how he is incredibly selfish. Maybe unintentionally, but that doesn't excuse it. Some people say it's Jay's fault for everything that happened, but that's just not true. Yes, he was a catalyst, setting a lot of the big moments of Marble Hornets in motion. I won't deny you that. But you want to know whose fault it actually is? The motherfucker with 7 minutes of screen time out of a 9-hour series. The operator. If you think about it, this was just a whirlwind of miscommunication among the characters. Anyway, I love Marble Hornets. I hope this made sense and someone enjoyed it. If you disagreed with something I said, or if you have something else you'd like to add, feel free to comment down below. And make sure to like the video and subscribe. Thanks again to those who did the form. Sorry if you didn't make it into the video. I did just do this to experiment, I'll be honest. This is where I'll be ending the video though. The genocide in Palestine is still going on, so I'll have links in the description. Same with Congo. Also, Food Not Bombs, I recommend you look into that. It's a mutual aid group, and you might just have one in your area. I've been Spooky here, and each time I watch season 3, it gets gayer and gayer and gayer each and every single fucking time.
Imagine 4 balls on the edge of a cliff.
Are you high right now?